Joining me now to talk about Wall Street's wild week, what it means or doesn't mean, and what may lay behind it and what lies ahead of us. Two of the world's top economists. Paul Krugman won the 2008 Nobel Prize in economics, and he is a columnist for the New York Times. Kenneth Rogoff is a former chief economist at the International Monetary Fund, now a professor of economics at Harvard University. Welcome to you both. Paul, let me start with you. The one thing we saw over the week was markets up, markets down, but the one trend that seemed persistent was there is a great demand for US Treasuries despite the fact that the S&P downgraded it. You've been talking a lot about this. Explain in your view, what does it mean that in moments like this, US Treasuries are still in demand, and what that does is push interest rates even lower than they are?
Well, what it tells you is that the investors, the market, are not at all afraid of what the, if you like, the policy elite or people like Standard & Poor's are telling them they should be afraid of. In a way, we've got all of Washington, all of Brussels, all of Frankfurt saying debt deficits, this is the big problem. And then what we actually have in reality is markets are terrified of prolonged stagnation, maybe another recession. They still see government debt as, U.S. government debt at any rate, as the safest thing out there, and are saying if this was a reaction to the S&P downgrade, it was the market saying, you know, we're afraid that that downgrade is going to lead to even more contractionary policy, even more austerity, pushing us deeper into the hole. So it's a, you know, it's a reality test, right? We've just had a wake-up call that said, hey, you guys have been worrying about the entirely wrong things. The really scary thing here is the prospect of what amounts to a somewhat reduced version of the Great Depression in the Western world.
Ken Rogoff, worrying about the wrong thing?
Well, I think the downgrade was well justified. It's a very volatile world, and the reason there's still a demand for treasuries is they've been downgraded a little bit to AA+, but that looks pretty good compared to a lot of the other options right now. It's a very, very difficult time for investors. There is a financial panic going on at some level. Some of it's adjusting to lower growth expectations, maybe a third of what we're seeing. Two-thirds of it is the idea no one's home, not in Europe, not in the United States. There's no leadership, and I really think that's what's driving the panic.
But you wrote in an article of yours that you think that this is part of actually a broader phenomenon, which is that people are realizing this is not a classic recession, this is not a classic cyclical downturn, this is what you call a great contraction. Explain what you mean by that. Well,
recessions we have periodically since World War II, but we haven't really had a financial crisis as we're having now. And Carmen Reinhart and I think of this as a great contraction, the second one, the first being the Great Depression, where it's not just unemployment, it's not just output, but it's also credit, housing, and a lot of other things which are contracting. These things last much longer because of the debt overhang that we started with. After a typical recession, you come galloping out. 6 months after it ended, you're back to where you started. Another 6 or 12 months, you're back to trend. If you look at a contraction, one of these post-financial crisis events, it can take up to 4 or 5 years just to get back to where you started. So people are talking about a double dip, a second recession. We never left the first one.
So, Paul Krugman, what the implication of what Ken Rogoff is saying is spending large amounts of money on stimulus programs is not going to be the answer, because until the debt overhang works its way off, you're not going to get back to trend growth. So in that circumstance, you'll be wasting the money. Is that?
No, that's not at all what it implies. At least not. I think my analytical framework, the way I think about this, is not very different from Ken's. At least I've certainly believed from day one of this slump that it was going to be something very different from one of your standard V-shaped, you know, down and up recessions, that it wasn't last a long time. One of the things we can do, at least a partial answer, is in fact to have institutions that are able to issue debt, namely the government, do so and sustain spending, and among other things, by maintaining employment, by maintaining income, you make it easier for the private sector to work down that overhang of debt.
Ken, are you in favor of a second or a significant additional stimulus in the way that I think Paul Krugman is?
No, I think that's where we part ways on this. I mean, I think that creates a debt overhang in the terms of future taxes that is not a magic bullet because it's not a typical recession. I do think if we used our credit to help facilitate one of these plans to bring down the mortgage debt in this targeted way, and it could involve a significant amount, that I would definitely consider. I mean, that's how I would do it. Now, obviously, you know, if things go from bad to worse, then you start taking out more and more things from the toolkit. But I would start with targeting the mortgages, then higher inflation, try to do some structural reforms, and of course, you know, if things are still going badly, I'm open to more ideas.
Can I just break in? I would say things have already gone from bad to worse. I mean, this is a terrible, terrible situation out there. You know, we talk about it, we look at GDP, whatever. We have 9% unemployment, and more to the point, we have long-term unemployment at levels not seen since the Great Depression. Just an incredibly large number of people trapped in basically permanent unemployment. This is something that desperately needs addressing. And I would be saying we should not be trying one tool after another from the toolkit a little bit at a time. At this point, we really want to be throwing everything we can get mobilized at it. I don't think fiscal stimulus is a magic bullet. I'm not sure that inflation is a magic bullet in the sense that it's kind of hard to get unless you're doing a bunch of other things. So we should be trying all of these things. You know, how did the Great Depression end? How did that end? It ended, actually, of course, with World War II, but which was a massive fiscal expansion, but also involved a substantial amount of inflation, which eroded the debt. What we need, hopefully we don't need a world war to get there, but we need this kind of all-out effort, which we're not going to get.
We're going to have to take a break. When we come back, we'll ask what exactly should the worries about the deficit be? Is that something to be taken seriously at all? When we come back.